Okay, Beseda, good morning. We're up to Siman Lamed Beis Seif Tes. Says we're talking about the ibud, the processing of the hide of the skin in order to make klaf to write the parshas for the tefillin. Says the Mechaber, Im ibdai einu Yehudi. If a non-Jewish person did the tanning, laharambam posel. According to the Rambam, that's posla filu omala Yisrael la'abed lishma. Even if the Yisrael said to him to do it lishma, well, harosh kasha. But according to the Rosh, it's kasha im Yisrael omed al gabo v'siyai. If the Yisrael is standing on top of him or over him and is helping him, says the Ramok tzas be'ibuda. He's helping a little bit in the actual ibud v'chein nagin, and that is our practice. We had the same machlokus, if you remember, way back regarding the tviyah of the tzitzis. The same machlokus. The Rambam said it's no good, it's possible for a non-Jewish person to do it, and the Rosh says that Yisrael Omed al Gabov would be okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Tes, in Sif Cotton Kofches, Afilu. So the Rambam says that if the non-Jewish person is doing the ibud, it doesn't work. The Svir Leila Rambam, because the Rambam is of the opinion, the Akum Oisa Daitid Nafshe. The non-Jewish person is doing this processing, doing the tanning for his own benefit, and he's not doing it lishma, then it's got to be lishma. The Afal Pisha Akum Omesh Shemer Yisrael. Even if the Akum tells me, yeah, I'm listening to the Yisrael, whatever he tells me I'm doing, Ein Piv V'Libo Shavim B'zeh. His heart and his mouth are not consistent, because he may say that, but deep down he's doing it for his own purposes, to get paid or whatever it may be. Aval harosh svirle, the Rosh is of the opinion, the kivan shu omed al gaboy, since the Yisrael is standing on top of him, b'tchila be'esha mesim ha'oros l'toy chasid. Since the Yisrael is standing there, whilst the akum, the non-Jewish person, is putting the oros into the lime, v'omer sheyidnem oz l'toy chasid l'shma, and is saying to him, put them there l'shma. We only need the kavana at that one moment. The ibud process is when you're putting it in the sid. That's it. It's 2 seconds. The Rosh is of the opinion for such a small moment in time that we can be somech that he's doing it lishma. For noisim adaita dehochin is doing it for that reason. But if the Yisrael standing over the akum, over this En Yehudi, he just thinks it, the Yisrael, Loi Mahani, that's not going to help. Even if he expressly says it, if he's just sort of saying it from a distance, shouting it from afar, that doesn't help, because according to the Rosh, he's actually got to help him do that. Ktsas. So this is going on the Ramah. The Ramah says Ktsas bibuda. Afilim lo sirak b'soifa ibud. Even if he only helps out a little bit at the end of the tanning process, va'afilu gam zeh siyu lo hayarak b'shut v'sim akum. Even if he's not doing it literally together with the akum kasha, so long as it's helping out a little bit. It's a bit like bishul akum and bishul Yisrael. He's just contributing somewhat. V'chol zeh lemitzvah ba'alma. All of this is lechatchila is lemitzvah. Aval b'di'eved laharosh kasha afilu lo siyu klal. But according to the Rosh, who says that Yisrael Omed al Gabov is kosher, even if the Yisrael doesn't help at all. The Akum adaited Yisrael Hamtzaveu, because he says that the Akum is doing it in line with the Yisrael's commands, Lasos Lishma, Avad is doing it Lishma. V'chein nagin. Okay, and the Ramah says that is indeed the practice. We get a non-Jewish person to actually do the tanning, and we don't need the Yisrael doing it himself. The minhag is, says the Mishnah Berurah in Lamed, that it should be like this. The Yisrael should actually put the oros, the skins, the hides, into the sids, into the lime, although we said the gulnut juicy as well. V'yomer la'akum, and he should say to the akum, shekol shar meleches ha'obed sheyasu yase gam ken lishma, that the rest of the tanning process should also be done lishma. Then v'yochel ha'akum achach lahotzi ba'atzmo l'sakno, and then the akum can finish it off and can take it out and can do it himselmed. Ve'ein tzorich od lamed al gabel l'sayeh od, and the Yisrael does not need to do any more than that. And if the Yisrael puts it into the sid and doesn't say a word to the akum, that needs investigation. Because according to that, some say that even according to the Rambam it's kosher, and some say not, because the Lemaisa the Yisrael has done it, and all you need is the beginning process. You don't need ongoing lishma because it's just soaking there and you're leaving there for a few days. So you just put it in there. That's what needs lishma. But others say no, that's not good enough. You can be makel b'di'eved. If the Yisrael helps the akum at the end of the process, and that finishes off that process, it doesn't tell him that he should do it at all lishma, then for sure that does not help to because you're just doing a little bit at the end, that doesn't help. Because the Yisrael didn't do anything by himself, he just helped out the akum a little bit. But if the Yisrael finished it off by himself, without the help of the akum, for example, the Yisrael took the oiris, the skin, out of the limestone, the lime, before it finished, and then he put it back in lishma. They are mekel. And like we said in the Be'alocha. Okay, take a look at footnote 50. What about it says the Chazon Ish she'kosav she'ma'ach she'tchilas ha'ibud nasa lishma b'meila kol hemshech ibud stoma lishma ve'ein tzorech machsheves lishma mufreshes. And the reason for this she'mutz la'abed oros al yedei mechone chashmalis. What about using a machine? Yeah, you got a machine, so you want to process it by way of a machine. It's like machine baked matzah. It's the same sort of issue. So he says, because of this Chazon Ish, that the tchilas of the ibud needs to be done lishma, and then memela, all the rest of it is going to be considered to be done lishma. Through some sort of electrical device, the initial act was done lishma. The rest of it was also on Nishma, so then l'chora that would be okay. Okay, let's just do a few more sifim. Halacha Yud, Sif Yud. Kashemesamnin hanakovim b'martzea kein osios. You want to make sure that this piece of hide was done lishma, and you don't want the Ein Yehudi to take the hide and to transfer it and to switch it. So you want to mark it up to make sure it's the right one. You might make a little mark on it, like letterings. Even though it's quite easy for the Ein Yehudi to forge and to bring alternative klafim, we're not choshesh. Mishum demirtas Ein Yehudi, because he's scared, because the Ein Yehudi is scared, Pen Yakir Yisrael, maybe the Jewish, his boss, will notice it, but Tzvias Ayin, by recognizing what was the correct klaf, what was his klaf and what he's been replaced with. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Lamed Aleph, B'Tfias Ayin, she'nosim b'simonim, that he can recognize he's got some sort of simonim, some sort of signs. Elu hanakovim nasu yosem echodesh mishaloi. It was made more recently. V'yeshem sheyichtov b'rosh b'fnim b'mokum she'in derech la'abit harosh. You should make a little mark in a place where you don't normally process the leather. And that ksav will be in place still after the tanning process. You shouldn't do it with a matzeh, with a knife, because that's easy to forge. But the evidence but lamaisa you can be choishesh. You don't have to be choishesh. You can be somech on the Shulchan Aruch, who says that we're not worried ein choisheshin for ziyuf because of the mirtus. Okay, now the next two seifim haven't got any Mishnah Berurah. We'll do those. Yud Aleph, she'ibdu shelo lishmai. Leather which has been processed shelo lishma. Im yesh tikun lachzor la'abdu lishmai. Can you repair it and make it now lishma? Yispoa b'tur Yerodeh Siman Reish Ayin Beis. That will be explained in the Tur and Yerodeh Siman Reish Ayin Beis. Halacha Yud Beis. What animals' skins can you use? Which animals are we talking about? Says the Mechaber, you use the klaf of the skin of a behema chayav v'oif hatahirim, of kosher animals, behema chayav v'oif, even if the animal was not shechted properly, it was a nevela, the animal just died by itself, or treifo, it had a fatal illness, and therefore you couldn't eat the animal, but still, because it's a behema tahira, you're allowed to use the skin. But you can't use the leather, the skins, the hides of an animal which is tomei. Why? It's got to be of a type which can go into your mouth. V'lo me'ar dog, and therefore no behema tamei. Velome ar dog, and it's min behema tahira, even if the animal is a nevela or a treifa. Velome ar dog, and you can't use the skin of a fish. Afidu hu tahar, even if the fish is tahar, mishum denofish zuhame, because it's got a very bad smell. It's got a very strong smell, and that would be inappropriate to use for kisvei kodesh. Yud gimel. Yeah, klaf shalim. The klaf has got to be complete. Shelo yehebo nekovim she'in hadio overlov, because there can't be any holes, even small holes, where the ink could go over it and you wouldn't recognize it. That the ois, the lettering that you write on top of this hole, shouldn't appear like two different letters. Says the Mishnah Berurah, l'shtayim, shehu katan kol kach, that the hole is so small, ad shekashemaver olav bekumas, when you write over it, nistem hanekav b'diyai, you can sort of fill up the hole with ink. Ve'ein hanekav nirgash bekumas, and you won't even recognize it. Kaisvin alov, and you can write on top of it. Even though a bit of the ink goes into this tiny hole. And if you hold it up to the sunlight, you can actually notice the hole. You shouldn't do that. But maisa kosher, but that would work. But if the nekev is much bigger, that you can't just sort of fill it up with ink, because it will just sort of drip through. Posel, then it's posel. Because that looks like there's two letters. Imagine you've got a hole in between the two letters. It looks like two letters. Even if the hole is in the middle of a letter. Imagine you've got a dalet. So the top of the dalet is quite thick, and you've got a little hole in the middle of the dalet. So even if the nekev is be'emtza over ha'is begagoy b'riyechei udiyoi makifa mikol tzad, but you've got ink all the way around the hole, parcel. Even if you've got the tsuras of the ice, that would still be a problem. All of this is true before you actually write it. But after you've written it, there's a little hole develops. Then you've got to just see, has this got a tzura of an ice, in which case it will be kosher. So to summarize, if you've got a tiny little hole, you're okay. You can fill it with a bit of ink, then you're okay. If the hole is a little bit bigger, and then you've got a problem, because by writing over it, it looks like you've got two letters. But that's only true before you start writing. If after you've written it and you've got a little hole in the ice, if you can still recognize that letter, then you're okay. Okay, we'll leave it there, Mr. Shem. Tomorrow, 7:40. Mr. Shem.